Sorry. Making me feel bad for being late.
No, I'm just kidding. It's a little lighter crowd, so we were just kind of waiting for a second. So welcome to today's coffee break. I'm Brandon Veroff. I'm the chair of the Education Committee. We're excited to feature this networking opportunity with our Missouri Gateway Chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council. Today we have some members and non-members of our chapter, so thank you for joining us. Our chapter, like many other nonprofits throughout the country, rely on funding, and the biggest source is through our memberships. If you aren't already a member, please consider joining our chapter membership. And if you are already a member, I'm going to put a link in the chat for our membership survey. So please take the membership survey. It is about a 15 at least minute survey, but I would encourage you to take the survey because it really is informative, and we only ask every couple of years for our membership to take this survey. All right. So the goal of our coffee breaks are to provide an opportunity for our community to engage in conversations over hot cups of coffee. Yum. So take a short break for 30 minutes. So our theme for today's conversation is GPRO. So today I'm excited to introduce our special guest, Johanna Schweiss from Cushman & Wakefield, Verizon County. Johanna is an energy and sustainability professional with expertise in sustainable building operations. Since graduating with a degree in architecture from Ball State University, Johanna has supported a wide range of organizations to green their operations and reduce their environmental impact, including commercial, multifamily, faith, and local governments. She is experienced in greenhouse gas inventories, climate action planning, lead for existing buildings, operations and maintenance certifications, energy benchmarking, and energy efficiency rebates. She's also passionate about the role our built environments can play to address the challenge of climate change and the environmental and economic opportunities of energy efficiency. So some general tips for everyone on the call: the option to click the grid view in their upper right hand corner to see more callers. The chat function is available for you to be able to chat with everyone. Please just please try to be respectful of others, allow others to join in on the conversation, be mindful of not jumping over anyone speaking, but feel free to talk. We're a small group, so feel free to join in that conversation. But if you have something to say and you haven't been able to get into it, just use one of the reaction buttons and I'll note it to try to bring you back into the conversation. And then finally, just try to keep yourself muted unless speaking to avoid background noise. Without further ado, Johanna.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me today. See, I'll go ahead and share my screen here. So as I said, can you guys see these slides? Great. As Brandon said, I'm here to talk about GPRO, which stands for Green Professional Building Skills Training. And we'll be focusing primarily on the operations and maintenance course today, since that is what we offer here locally. There are other courses available, but we'll be mainly talking about the O&M piece. So GPRO was developed by Urban Green, which is an independent affiliate of the U.S. Green Building Council based in New York City. And the training was developed in partnership with trade unions, contractors, building owners, and building operators. And the training is delivered here locally by USGBC-Missouri Gateway Chapter, the local delivery partner. As I mentioned, there's a number of different trainings that GPRO offers, and they start with this fundamentals of building green training and then move on to the more specialized sections. What we offer here locally is O&M essentials, and there's other content for different specializations. But the training we'll be talking today is that O&M, which is focused on building operations and ongoing maintenance of existing buildings. And the training's focused and kind of specialized toward the people that work in buildings day to day and are really hands-on with the maintenance and operations of buildings. And it's giving them, the skills to be able to understand their building as, multiple systems interacting with each other, and giving them like a holistic understanding of how the different systems in their building, HVAC, electrical, water, all impact its performance. Giving them an understanding of the importance of high performance buildings, and then arming them with actionable measures that improve energy efficiency, the health of occupants, water efficiency of their building, really inspiring them and then arming them to be advocates and implementers of action items that improve environmental outcomes at their buildings. So these are the high level course objectives. And diving a little bit deeper, into actually the content that it covers, it's pretty detailed. So these folks are generally like I mentioned, hands-on and involved in the specific operations. So they're likely familiar with HVAC equipment and water use and lighting. And GPRO is meant to kind of build on their existing skills and give them insights into how to optimize those systems and give them context about why energy efficiency and water efficiency is good for their building, their bottom line, and then also kind of like our world as a whole. So it does get pretty specific into things like optimizing your heating and cooling systems, or why indoor air quality is important, why efficient lighting is important, and it is able to be like, I think the content is very useful to people on a range of expertise levels, and really does a good job of framing why optimizing all these systems is really important, and gives them the skills to advocate for the changes that they see, since they're on that kind of like hands-on level with their building. The course is 14 hours, and the chapter delivers it over 3 days. And I think our past courses have been scheduled from 1 to 5, so you have 3 days of content. And there's also an exam that comes at the end of the course. After the actual training is finished, the students sit for an exam. The exam is now virtual and open book, and it's a 50-question multiple choice test. There's like a certain time frame after the course is finished that students can sit for the exam, and if they pass the exam, then they receive the GPRO certificate. So why is this important? Why are we looking as the chapter to train personnel in these topics? And you guys likely all know this already, but buildings use a lot of energy, and most of that energy is fossil fuels. And these are slides from the course, so just to give you a little taste of what it's like. So nationally, buildings are responsible for about 40% of our energy use. And in the city of St. Louis, that's actually 65% of our energy use is from existing buildings. So by training staff to look for and implement strategies to reduce energy use, reduce water use, and improve the performance of our buildings, we can save energy and money and reduce those environmental impacts. And I think the cool thing about GPRO is it does a good job about inspiring the exam takers to be advocates for those changes. Because people's ability to make decisions and implement things on their own can be limited. So when you give people the skills to identify change, but then also like a framework about why it's important, you kind of give yourself a leg up on actually getting things done. Some more context is that cities and states throughout the country are starting to require performance improvements from our existing buildings. And you'll see St. Louis representing here on the map, along with Washington, D.C. and New York City. So these building performance policies that require a variety of things, but generally like steady improvement in energy use in our existing buildings, training your staff to support you as you strive to meet your performance targets can be really helpful. There's also a lead pilot credit for training your trades, operators, and service workers. So if you are pursuing lead for new construction, you can, pursue this pilot credit by getting your staff certified through GPRO. And GPRO is actually the only training that's like officially, I guess, recognized by this pilot credit already. So I know I went through that kind of quickly, but we have some upcoming courses, as Emily mentioned. Next Monday through Wednesday, we have a course that I'll be teaching along with Emily and Matt Emden. And then there's another course in November. So if you have colleagues or if you're interested, I really love this content. I find it, I really enjoyed, taking the training course and the original course, and then I really enjoy teaching it. So I encourage you to check it out. And, I guess now we can open it up for discussion or questions.
So what would be one of the biggest takeaways you got from the GPRO course?
That's a good question. I would say that it does a really nice job of framing the climate change in the context of other environmental challenges that we have successfully addressed, which is some nice historical perspective to keep in mind as we face this challenge, right? So that talks about the acid rain crisis, and how, as the hole in the ozone layer. Those are the two that I think they bring up. But how the global community kind of came together and worked together to address those challenges and successfully mitigate those environmental impacts over the past 20 years. And they give some more historical context about how the EPA was, very bipartisan project when it was, established, and the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. So I think that historical perspective is helpful to keep in mind, given, the environment we're in now. And then there's so many good, like specific building level action items that they identify, and they have a workbook that you can identify the specific items that you want to take back to your building to implement. So one of them, is identifying like the stack effect in the building, where if you have an open window on the top floor, it's going to draw all your air out through the top of your building. So looking at like the open hatches on your roof and those seals. So it gets down to a pretty fine grained level, which I, find to be pretty interesting, just personally. And, those are the kind of strategies they identify for, for like each of the kind of specific items. They recently edited the slides, and they added a section about environmental justice as well, which I think is a really nice addition to the content that they already had. So it gets pretty fine grained, but I'm kind of really into all those little details, so I am into it.
I have a question. My company's headquarters is in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and then I handle Formica now, and their headquarters is in Cincinnati, Ohio. So how would, because something like this is going to have to be implemented at the headquarters of those two companies. And I know that Formica is has a goal now to be net zero by 2030. So this might be something they would be interested at Formica, but it's out of Cincinnati. So would they just contact their local chapter of the USGBC and go through their?
Well, these courses are virtual, so they could participate in the in our chapter's courses.
Well, that's true. Okay.
Or, you know, I don't know, Emily, if you know whether this is pretty widely offered. It seemed like we're, you know, kind of unique in offering this as a chapter, but that may be out of date, my understanding.
Okay.
The Illinois chapter is a provider, a GPRO provider as well, and in fact, they're hosting a course in August that Matt is teaching, one of our instructors. So, thank you. You know, you're welcome, Illinois. And and then the New York, you know, the folks in New York offer this, and everybody's been doing it virtually at this point. So I don't know if there's a provider, a GPRO provider in Wisconsin or Ohio. It's possible. In some cases, there are some community colleges that have been delivery partners. So it's worth looking into that if there is a community college in those areas that might be interested. I think they're always looking for more providers too. So yeah, but at this point, I mean, the virtual trainings are available.
Yeah. I guess it doesn't matter because it's all virtual. So I'll mention it, and then that way, to see if anyone's interested. I'll mention it to my manager, and then I'll mention it to Formica, my Formica counterpart.
That's awesome.
Great, thanks, Ann.
Sure.
I have another question. I'm glad that you brought up the agenda. For chapter 11, the action plan, is that an individual action plan for each facility, or is that kind of just some laid out pre-planned action plans that a facility can take?
It is intended, like, as you go through each of these specific topics, that you identify like a couple of the strategies they lay out of things you want to take back to your building. And then the action plan section encourages you to go back through your notes and kind of prioritize what you want to implement at your own facility. So it's like per participant rather than like, here's a template. But they do have, you know, they give you a format to work with and suggested strategies. And then you can also, you know, write your own. And there's also a, like some prioritization by cost and payback, and some tools to help you sort through the different strategies you might want to implement yourself. So it is pretty action focused. And I think one of the goals they outline in the objectives is, is to take at least 3 away, but there's definitely, you know, room to make a pretty extensive plan of things you want to do short term, medium term, long term. And they talk a little bit in their website about how, you know, the attendees of the course may have like a range of agency in their buildings to decide, you know, what gets implemented and what doesn't. But arming them with the ability to see those opportunities and then inspiring them that these are important, you're kind of supply or like setting them up to become advocates for improvements in general. Or, you know, if they are the person making those decisions, then they, you know, have, you know, even more ability to drive this forward.
I have a question. I'll go ahead. I guess, Johanna, in your role that you've been in for the past like 1 or 2 years now, I guess how much of this was your company already doing, or did you kind of like bring this to the table for them?
Yeah, so my current role is pretty like limited focus. So I have brought this forward, and I think they are thinking about it, but no progress yet, so I'll keep encouraging.
One question, and this I guess is more of a clarification. So this is a, certificate program or certificate training program. Is there any continuing education required for this to keep that, or?
I don't think so. Do you know the answer?
There's not. I wanted to, yeah.
I don't think there is. There is for us as instructors. You have to, teach 2 courses every 2 years. But for participants, yeah, I think once you get the certification, you're good.
Yeah, they don't have that, but I mean, most certificate programs don't have that. It's just like the accreditation. So it's a little bit different than some of the other certifications and accreditations we've been featuring in this series over the summer, but I think it's still.
Yeah, that's good to bring up.
Yeah. Since it's somewhat more oriented towards trades, and they tend to be pretty into these kind of certificate programs in their training, and it's kind of adding feathers to your cap. Yes, is the way I think about it.
And that lead pilot credit, that's probably for the initial certification process, not a recertification, right?
I was just wondering that because when I looked it up, it's listing as lead B, B, and C, so it's for new construction. But I'll have to dig into that a little bit more to see if it's also offered for O&M. It would almost make more sense to be offered for O&M. Do you know offhand, Emily, if it's?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. My guess is that if it's B, D, and C, they're looking for the other modules, like the electrical and HVAC.
Right, yeah.
Because they have all those, and plumbing, they have those trade-specific trainings that we haven't really dipped into. And they have a construction management one that they're just kind of relaunching now. So, yeah. But it would make sense for them to offer it an O&M certification and even recertification, I would think.
Like I remember that it is. So it could have just linked me specifically, to this version of the pilot credit. We can look into that. But yeah, this is specifically for training your staff, the staff working in the building, which is kind of cool.
So here's a question. Are there any other similar certification system as this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think there are deeper dives on these topics for people in buildings. I mean, like you could go for the building operator certification. There's the certified energy manager. But this one's pretty unique, I feel like, in its green focus. And it's, the audience it has in mind. So I do think this training is pretty unique in its own way, in its like framing of why all this is important as far as
Yeah, I would agree that the building operator certification and the energy management ones, they're much more narrowly focused on the energy piece of things, whereas this is like looking at all the different aspects and giving that kind of the fundamentals piece, which really lays this pretty deep foundation on climate issues and, like Johanna was saying, the historical environmental policies that have been passed. It's pretty different.
I have another question for Johanna. Would you say, what was your inspiration for becoming an instructor?
Well, I think I was in the right place at the right time when Emily had the instructor training. So I was really glad to be able to participate in that. And I think we're lucky to be able to offer this locally, since, it's not super widespread outside of New York City right now. And I think, one thing that they mentioned on the GPRO website is something they're calling the green gap between our existing building staff and, the skills that they will need to really support what we need to do to reach our climate goals. And I think that's really cool. We have so many resources in our existing personnel, in all these buildings, everywhere you look, and they have so much existing knowledge and expertise in their own building. So giving them this additional layer of context and kind of like an organizing framework on how they can drive their buildings to, one, meet these performance targets that are now, required of them, but also just like support these wider environmental goals is really exciting. So, like I said, I'm just a big GPRO fan.
Awesome. We were able to offer this instructor training through a small grant when we were working with the city on the city energy project. So in the benchmarking phase of things, they offered all those cities the opportunity to do this training, and I jumped on it because I've been following GPRO since they launched it in the very beginning and have been wanting to bring it here for a long time, and even tried working with our different trades like the sheet metal workers, the electricians, the plumbers and pipe fitters, and they do their own training, so they weren't really particularly interested, even though I think they saw the value. But anyway, so I'm really psyched that we have this opportunity, at least for O&M, and in the future, if the other modules, there is a demand for the other modules, I'd be open to pursuing those as well. But we are going to wrap up because it's 10:30, and thank you to Johanna for a great presentation. And we've got the session next week, the O&M session, Monday through Wednesday, and then again we'll do the same thing in November. If you know anyone that's interested, please share. And encourage everyone again to take the survey like Brandon shared in the chat. And our next coffee break will be with Angela on the True Zero Waste rating system on August 5th. So we'll hope to see you there. Have a great day, everybody.
Sounds good. Have a good day.
Bye.